Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to do an experiment with the dried SCOBYs. I'm going to try different media to see what works best. Yeah, let's see what happens. So I have some acrylic paints and some pens, some pencils, and markers. So I just want to test the SCOBY. The dried SCOBY. In this case, I'm using it as a canvas or as paper. I'm just really curious to see what happens. So let's get started. So I have start off with my green paint. Just going to take a small amount of it. And yeah, I'm gonna just test it here. Let's make some little flowers and see what happens. Put a little bit more. Okay, that should work for right now. Then let's take maybe some yellow, just to dab it on there. Just dab some in the center. Okay. That's blending. I just want to see if it absorbs the color or if the color sits on it. Acrylic paint probably will work really well because that tends to dry really fast. Okay, so we will put, just so you guys see, put it off to the side so it can dry. And just so you have an idea, it's really thick. It's slightly transparent, but I guess it just depends on how thick the SCOBY itself is, the one that you start off with before you dry it. Let's put that one off to the side. Here I have one that's really, this one was super thin. It's very fragile, if you can see. It tears really easily, whereas the other one, this one is really strong. I'm like really pulling on it, so it's almost like it would be leather. Okay, this one is thin. I'm just curious to see. I'm going to use a pencil and just write on there SCOBY. SCOBY. Actually, SCOBY with a C. SCOBY. And it writes on there just like it would on paper. Okay, so I'm going to use a marker now. This is like a Sharpie. It's a green Sharpie. I'm just curious how that takes to it. I'm just curious to see if it bleeds through on the other side or not. It does bleed through a little bit. I think less than it would on paper. So this is not bad. I guess this would be a good alternative to paper. Let's see. Let's put that off to the side. I'm going to take another one. This is another thin one. It's not as thin as the one before. This one you can actually pull on. But I suppose if you try to tear it, actually, it's not that easy. I'm really trying to tear it and it's not tearing. So, but this one was much thinner when I started off before I dried them. So it really depends. I guess the thicker it is the more durable it is. I'm going to try to write on this with a regular pen. Actually, this is green. Let's see. Just write the word SCOBY on there. I don't know if this is a good pen. Okay, let's just use our regular pen. Okay. See, this one is not so easy. This is just a regular ink pen and it doesn't seem to write as well on there. I'm going to use a pencil again on this one. SCOBY. Of course, the texture has something to do with how it comes out. And why do I keep writing SCOBY with K? It's C. S-C-O-B-Y. SCOBY. Okay. There you go, guys. The pencil seems to work really well. I also thought I might take some crazy glue and just glue a few of them together and see what happens. So I'm going to let that dry for a second or two. Because my thought was if it sticks together well, and depending on the size of the SCOBY, like you can actually brew the SCOBYs in a large container and then you have more canvas to work with. So the thought came to me that, hey, what if I did a few of these together, or just brewed a very large SCOBY and it made it into like a recyclable bag to carry, you know, lightweight groceries or something like that, as long as it's not exposed to water. I think it would work. I just haven't had the time to get the containers together. This would have to dry for a little bit for me to see how it works, so I'll come back after it's dried. Let's put that off to the side. Okay, here's the one with the acrylic that we started off with. It's not completely dry, but mostly. And on the back side of it, it's not, you can see it only because it's slightly transparent or translucent, but it didn't bleed through where you can feel the paint on the other side. So that works pretty good. I think that would be a good canvas, recyclable canvas. I'm also curious to see what happens when you rehydrate the SCOBY. I have a little bowl of water and I'm going to take one of the thinner SCOBYs and dunk it in there. Just let it soak for a minute and see what happens. And then I also have a spray bottle here, and I'll take one of the thinner pieces. This one I wrote on it, so I'm going to just try that one. And I'm going to just spritz it and see if it's lightly moistened, what happens. Let's just let this sit for a minute, and then I'll come back and show you the texture. Okay guys, it's been about 5 minutes, and as you can see, the SCOBY is definitely softened. It's still not completely rehydrated, but trying to tear it, it does tear. So it's closer to what it originally was. And let's see this other one that I just sprayed. This one is definitely not as saturated, but it's definitely pliable and closer to what it was in its original state as a kombucha SCOBY. I was also wondering if I painted on the SCOBY and let the paint dry, if the paint would actually rinse off if I tried to rinse it off. So let's let that dry and come back and see how that works. Here's another option, guys. This is the Rehydrated SCOBY, and I just wondered if I painted on it while it was wet, what it would be like. And then I'll also show you what this is like after it's dried. I think it needs a little bit more paint on there. You can color the SCOBYs, like try different shades or tints with things found around the house, like turmeric, coffee, cinnamon, cocoa, anything like that. Okay guys, here's the one that I painted, and I was curious to see if the paint would wash off if I soaked it. So let's see how that is. And the paint is coming right off, and it might just have to do with the fact that acrylics dry so fast and they're very superficial on whatever you paint them on, so it comes off almost completely, so you could actually recycle the piece of SCOBY. So that's good to know. So instead of wasting paper and cutting down the trees and things like that, we can just recycle our pieces of SCOBY. Okay guys, so here are the ones that I glued together. See, they stick nicely. So I imagine I could glue several of them to create something. They did take a while to dry. And here's the other one that I painted wet. And now it's dried. It's a little bit translucent. The color is very faint on there, but it dried quite nicely. This was one of the thinner ones, but I imagine it could be done on any one of them. And the color didn't really fade through, but because it's translucent, you can see it on the other side. So there you have it, guys. My little SCOBY experiment. I'm just curious to see what I can make with it. I think there's so much potential. I have in mind maybe a lampshade, or as I said, a recyclable bag that I can use for groceries, things like that. And you would naturally treat it like you would paper and not get it wet. I will try to do some other videos where I try these other projects. So in the meantime, give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Give me some ideas if you have other ideas as to what we could do with this, because I like to see when we can recycle things that we have rather than wasting. Thanks for watching.